If you own a Hasselblad X2D and you're wondering whether it's worth upgrading to the X2D2, or you have neither and you're wondering which one to buy, well then hopefully this video is going to give you a clear answer. Now I bought my X2D probably about a year ago, and after shooting for around about 45 years, it took me 43 and a half years to finally get the camera that I'd wanted all along, a Hasselblad. I'd originally wanted one of the old 500 cm, I think it was, 120 film cameras, medium format film cameras, but it wasn't until we hit well and truly got into the digital age that I finally got my first Hasselblad, and the X2D was everything that I hoped it would be, with a couple of caveats. And I talked about those caveats in my original owner review of the X2D. As I pointed out in that review, I was completely smitten with the gorgeous industrial design, the incredible color science, the image stabilization, and the way the camera just felt in the hand. I mean, this grip here is the best that I've ever used. The way the camera feels in the hand is the best of all the cameras that I've used over the years, and I think I've had about 20 different cameras over that time. But like I said, there were a couple of shortcomings, and I pointed those out in that review, and we're going to go through those now. The first was something that I'd become accustomed to with my Canon R5 and my R6 Mark II, and that was the ability to set the screen at an angle that allowed me to shoot right down low, at waist level, overhead, all that kind of stuff, because of its flip out and rotating screen. Now, the original screen on the Hasselblad X2D only popped out sort of like this, and the viewfinder was partially blocked, sorry, the screen was partially blocked by the viewfinder. And one of the things I was hoping they'd do with the new one, which they have, is to make this extend out so that it clears the viewfinder. So now you've got a clear view to shoot down at ground level, waist level, all that kind of stuff. But it also rotates like this, so it's much easier to shoot overhead, which is something I do a lot with this tripod, because this one goes way up over my head. So oftentimes I actually want to have a bit of a top-down look, especially with a car, and this now allows me to do that. The second thing was it didn't have a 5-way toggle for moving my focus point around. I had to either use a touchscreen or I had to use a combination of the two wheels to move it left and right, up and down, and that was kind of confusing and laborious. And if you're looking through the viewfinder, then using the touchscreen is a bit of a pain in the bum too. So this 5-way toggle allows you to move your focus point around, and you can also press it and program it to do a number of different things. I've programmed mine to punch in on the scene so I can see nice and close what I'm focused on, particularly if I'm using a manual focus lens like the Leica R-mount 180mm f2.8, which I use a lot on this camera, and I used on the X2D as well. The third thing is better autofocus. The X2D is known for being fairly relaxed with its autofocus. Well, this one now with its LiDAR sensor is much more accurate, it's much faster, and when you pair it with one of these new lenses like this incredibly good 35-100 E-lens, expert lens, then you end up with nice snappy focus. And in fact, I shot aircraft out at Melbourne Airport the other afternoon with this lens, with the focus set to continuous and the drive mode set to continuous, and I was able to get some really good, nice, sharp photos with this combination. So I was very impressed with that. Another thing which has popped up with this camera is subject detection, face, eye detect, vehicle detect, and that's made the AF, when photographing people, far more accurate. It locks on the eye much better than what the X2D did, even though the X2D was pretty good, really, considering. But for shooting vehicles, of course, that's a real boon. Now, just a tip, when I was shooting aircraft, I noticed that having it set to vehicle subject detection was no good with aircraft. It just picked up whatever stationary vehicles were parked nearby and it locked onto those. So when I was shooting vehicles, I turned the subject detection off and I was able to lock onto aircraft nice and fast. It picked them up, it knew it had something in its field of view, it locked onto that, and I was able to shoot continuously and get lots of nice sharp photos. Now later I went back there and shot with my R6 Mark II and my RF 100-400, and while that allowed me to punch in much tighter on the aircraft, because that only has 26 megapixels and this has 102, punching in on this in post with the images I got of this, just as tight, just as good as the R6 Mark II, and of course you get that beautiful color science, which the Hasselblad is renowned for. A couple of other minor things. It is a different color now. It's sort of a dark gray, and the lettering on the top is not in a relief format with the white now. It's just sort of a relief lettering. It's dark, the same color as the body. And this grip material, I think, is much better. A lot of people have called it elephant skin because that's what it looks like, but it's not sort of porous like the old one. Now, the old one wasn't porous in the sense that it absorbed moisture, but it had little tiny holes in it, and it would absorb skin flakes and little bits of dust and that sort of stuff, and began to look a bit manky after a while. This one is a nice, tight, textured material and doesn't absorb any of that stuff, so that's really nice as well. There's a few other features, and a little bit later in the video, I'll run through those quickly so you can see what they are. But now this is exactly the camera that I wanted from the very beginning. It is what I call an artist tool. For somebody who photographs landscapes, cars, people, food, still life, this is, in my view, the ultimate photographic device. It really is an artist tool because it doesn't have any of the video features that modern mirrorless cameras have, like the Canon R5. It is bereft of all the superfluous menu items, the superfluous buttons, and all the other nonsense, which only serves to confuse 95% of people. So I love that this is a really simple device. It does what it's designed to do to perfection. It's an incredible tool. Now, I don't use it with flash, and I know that a lot of people like medium format cameras with leaf shutters in the lens because they can get flash sync up to the maximum shutter speed available on that lens, whether it's 2,000th or 4,000th of a second, and that's great for shooting things like portraits outdoors, but I don't use flash with this camera. In fact, I don't use flash hardly ever on any of my cameras. For me, this camera, with its beautiful color science, its gorgeous industrial design, its fantastic ergonomics, its image stabilization, and all the other photocentric features that this has, makes this the perfect tool for photographing landscapes and cars, the two things that I love photographing the most. Now, typically there is a CPL filter, a circular polarizing linear filter, or polarizing filter on the end of this. I just took it off for the purpose of this video, but I use a CPL on all my stills cameras for shooting images of landscapes and cars, mainly to get rid of reflections, to boost color saturation and boost the color in the sky, that sort of stuff. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that there is a L bracket attached to this. You'll find that most people shooting with the X2D have this Pi Pro, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, L bracket on here with the Arca Swiss bottom on it and Arca Swiss side on it. This is a fantastic L bracket for this camera because it's fairly discreet. It blends in perfectly with the camera, and this side of the L bracket extends outwards for two purposes. The main purpose is so that you can get access to your USB-C port for charging an image download, as well as your CF Express card door. I don't use CF Express in this or the X2D. I've never felt the need for it. If I was shooting commercially and I wanted redundancy, then I would have one in there and mirror all my shots. But this also acts as a second handle, which is great, shooting vertically, just for getting extra purchase on the camera. I kind of like that. And oftentimes I find myself actually holding it this way. So that's a really good feature. So what I would say to you is, if you already have an X2D and you're salivating over this camera, like I was, and I was very lucky to get one nice and early, along with the 35-100, thanks to Camera Electronic in Perth, who've been extremely helpful. I bought a bunch of Hasselblad gear off them recently, as well as the Leica Deluxe 8, which I'm filming this video on. And I've been thrilled with their service. They've been fantastic. So they were great getting me this combination nice and fast. But if you are enjoying your X2D and you lament the absence of a decent articulating screen that folds down for overhead shots, that comes out nice and flat to clear the viewfinder, and you would love to have the 5-way toggle for moving your focus point around, and a few other bits and pieces, faster autofocus with the LiDAR sensor on the front. If these kinds of things are important to you, then this is definitely worth the upgrade. It just satisfies those things that were missing in the original X2D. If you don't have an X2D and you're sort of trying to decide whether to get an X2D or an X2D2, then what I would say to you is the X2Ds used are a bargain right now, because so many people want this camera that there has been a flood of X2Ds onto the market, and you can save yourself thousands of dollars, which is unusual for a Hasselblad. So if these things aren't important to you, the screen, the tilting screen, the 5-way toggle, the LiDAR sensor, if those things aren't important to you and you take a more leisurely approach to photography, so faster autofocus is not a big deal, I would save myself a few $1,000s and just get the X2D. You'll pick up a camera which still has all of the core features that this is renowned for: the beautiful color science, the gorgeous industrial design, the fantastic image stabilization, the beautiful ergonomics. You'll still get all of that with a used X2D, and I would save my money and put that money into getting a lens like this, or whatever lens is suitable for the kind of photography that you do. Get yourself a nice Hasselblad lens to go with your camera. Now we'll quickly run through all the new features on the X2D so that you can make a final informed decision which way to go. Anyway, if you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I read every single one of them and I respond to every single one of them. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, by all means, drop them in the comments section and I'll be happy to answer them for you. But that's it in a nutshell. I don't need to go through all the tech specs. If you've been curious about getting one of these, I'm sure you've watched a bunch of videos already. You've probably read the specs online 1,000 times, so you don't need to hear that. You just need to know from somebody who paid for their own camera and lens, then you just need to hear, is this the camera for you? And as I've outlined, for some, absolutely it's worth the money. For others, you might be better off saving a few grand and getting a pre-owned X2D. All right, if you want to learn how to take better car photos, then have a look at my car photography field guide. You'll find a link to that in the description below. And if you'd like to get the occasional email from me, not spammy stuff, and it's only occasional because I'm very busy, but you want to hear from me from time to time with the odd bit of photography and philosophical stuff, then by all means, have a look at that in the link below. Also, it's called One More Thing, and I'll welcome you to the community if you choose to do that. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next video. Bye for now.